Good morning. You can close the doors. Again, good morning. I know many of you were out last night. I am Curtis Wilson, Vice President General Manager for the Restaurant Hotel Group for American Express. For all you first-timers, Carl's Pharmacy is out here to the left. They've got plenty of Visine and Aspen. Again, please pace yourself and stay hydrated. Welcome to the 23rd Annual American Express Restaurant Trade Program. We are pleased to see new attendees as well as some familiar faces in the crowd. Again, American Express is an advocate and business partner for the restaurant industry, and we've been proud to be a part of this for 20 years of successful programs here in Aspen with individuals that shape the hospitality world, and we're thrilled to see this program get better and better each year. I wasn't able to attend the session we had yesterday afternoon due to mechanical difficulties out of Newark, New Jersey, but I arrived safely at midnight. But again, many of you were at our welcome reception yesterday afternoon. You had a chance to meet our panelists and network with fellow trade attendees. Again, if you weren't able to join us yesterday, we hope you will have a chance to join us this afternoon at the Afternoon Saloon right here at the Jerome Garden Terrace from 2:30 to 4 p.m. today. Again, these cocktail hours will give you a unique opportunity to mix, mingle, and enjoy handcrafted cocktails, like we need more cocktails, both American and Italian on Friday and also Saturday. Again, 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. We'd like to thank all of our panelists, as well as key members of the industry, for attending and sharing best practices and insights year after year. We want to also thank the Hotel Jerome staff for accommodating us this year and giving us the necessary support to make this happen. I also want to thank Philip, Sarah, Courtney, and Balton from Balton Company for their help in planning this event and facilitating this program for the last several years. I also want to give a special thanks to our restaurant industry development team and all the American Express representatives who have been in the planning stages the last year to make this happen. Again, thank you so much for your support and your effort this weekend. As you know, the trade program is run by American Express, but it's one of the many ways that we support the industry and merchants who accept our card products. And again, some of the other initiatives we do around the country are the sponsoring of the Restaurant Neighbor Award, the Golden Chain Award, also the founding sponsor of Nutrition News and also Healthy Dining Finder. We publish a industry-leading newsletter, Restaurant Briefing and Market Briefing. We support Share Our Strength, Taste of the Nation, Dine Out, No Kid Hungry Left Behind, and I too sit on the National Restaurant Association Education Foundation. So American Express and many of my colleagues are truly committed and advocates to this industry. Finally, I'd like to turn this over to Steve, our tireless trade program manager from Chicago, ABC Channel 7, a 12-time James Beard Award winner. Steve, thank you.
Thanks, Curtis. Can you all hear me okay? Great. Good morning. Any first-timers here? A couple. Oh, wow. More than a few. Great. Well, welcome, welcome. Absolutely. Some of us can get jaded because we do this every year, but boy, this is fantastic to have some newcomers here. So just a couple of housekeeping things. We're going to talk for about an hour here this morning, and then I'm going to open it up for questions at about 10:15. We've got microphones that'll be moving around the room, so please hold your questions until 10:15. I promise to get you out of here at 10:30, right on time. And if you also notice on your tables, you've got some cards, some comment cards. Every year, of course, American Express, Balton Company, we all want to improve the program each year. So give us some quick feedback if you would. And then at the next seminar at 1:30, we will draw at the seminar. You need to be present to win, but you could win a $50 American Express gift card. So that's what the incentive program is. We have made slight tweaks over the years, so that does come in handy. We used to start this at 8 o'clock in the morning, I think, or even earlier. So we did move it back a little bit. We also decided I would dispense with introducing all these panelists and reading their extensive bios, which eats into our precious time, because obviously you've got your program in front of you or with you in your trade bag, which explains what everybody does and what we've been accomplishing. So this is T100, or as I like to call it, the Underachievers Club. Because as I was doing the research, I got to tell you, incredible bios for each of these guys. And I couldn't help but think, what have I been doing for the last 20 years? I'm just such a slacker because there's so much that each of these gentlemen is involved in. And so today we're talking about how to market to today's diner. And I want to start by talking about how to market to the local diner, because obviously you all are involved in national press, and that's great, and if you can get it, fantastic. But I think the bread and butter is really the local clientele. And so I used to think in the old days, which wasn't that long ago, that it was really important to be mentioned or included in the local dining section in your local paper. So, the Post, the Tribune, the Times, in Danny's case. And then, of course, I read recently that the Times-Picayune in New Orleans not only laid off 200 people, but they've gotten rid of their food critic, which is kind of a seismic shift in how I think things are going. So is it still important to be in the local newspaper? Do you care if you're in the local newspaper? Is that already the way of the dinosaurs? Anybody? Danny.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be back here. I think that with respect to being in the local newspaper, there's really two issues. One is, does it make the people on your team feel good that they wrote about? So I don't think there's anybody, whether it's a cook who's going to send a nice press clipping back to his mom and say, see what I did, or the sommelier or the general manager. So it definitely feels good when you get mentioned, especially if it's a good mention. I think that the degree to which that drives business has certainly changed a lot. We're doing a tech panel right now, which presumably is going to shift into social media at a certain point. And I think the confluence of people getting their news from people that they want to get their news from, i.e. their friends and or other influential people that they follow, as opposed to the classic sources, which is the person that chose to write an article about the press release that you sent from your restaurant. That's changed. And so we're at a day and age where it still matters. It still feels good to get a mention in the local newspaper, but I think by and large it means a whole lot more when the people that you've chosen to get your news from are the people that give you that news.
Other of you, Jose or Rick?
I think it still is unbelievably important, and more like if in my case I kind of decided to begin moving away from Washington D.C., where the question is Chef Jose at Washington at all, or is he in every other city around the States? So to be part of the local newspapers of the local, even I'm not talking even Washington Post. Now we have a lot of newspapers that they are neighborhood. They are, that they only go to a part of town. Those are even to me more important because they are very strategic in reaching the people that they are half a mile away from you. So in the old days, it's kind of you will give even more importance to the top newspaper and the top food critic. But now it's almost like you have to give a lot of importance to this kind of mom and pop newspaper that almost no one cares about, but that they are there and that they reach 5,000, 10,000 people. But like if you make sure that you are present, you know that your restaurants and yourself, you're going to benefit enormously.
I would say, sort of to echo what both of these fellows have said, it's important to be in the newspapers, partly because if you're ignored by the local newspapers, then there's going to be that group of people that aren't going to be able to find out what you're doing because they haven't chosen to get their news in different ways. I think that's really shifting a lot. And we are noticing that when something comes out about our restaurant, say in the Chicago Tribune, we get much less comment about it these days than if something comes out on eater.com. Like a lot of the people that are really interested in what we're doing, they follow Eater more than they follow the dining section of the Tribune.
Okay. So, and by the way, I should mention, if you're following on Twitter or you're tweeting, you can check us out or follow us at @briefing, and also the hashtag #AmexTrade if you are tweeting, and then also videos from all these seminars today. About a 3-hour delay will be up at restaurantbriefing.com.
So
if you want to check
you are
those out.
telling them that they can tweet?
They can tweet.
Okay, we can't,
No,
and
you
I think
can't.
that's illegal.
Yes.
The sound chief told us you cannot tweet.
That's what your
Because it's an
assistant is for.
interference
That's what your
with the panel.
assistant is
So
for.
the record, I am an immigrant, but I have rights. So you can You can tweet, we can't.
All right, well, I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about that. So I looked into all of your followers, about how many followers. Between the four of you and myself, there are about 350,000 followers. So that is roughly the equivalent of what the NBC affiliate does in Chicago at 10 o'clock.
I think it's fair to say, though, that 325,000 of those belong to Rick.
240, but no one's really counting. But Jose's got about 90,000. So,
98.
Okay.
273, 74, 75.
And so my question is,
I'm one.
and so my question is, what's the stickiness of that? Because like Chris Cosentino is a chef in San Francisco. He's got a new book out he's promoting. I talked to the publisher about, you've got a lot of followers. That must be great for book sales. He's like, well, they're not all buying books. Are all of these followers following you and coming in and responding to what you're tweeting about at the restaurant? And Rick talks about new menus you're working on all the time. So what is the stickiness of Twitter?
I personally, I think that it gives me an opportunity to talk to people who are far away from me. And I get more comments coming to me from people that are never going to be able to come to our restaurant, but they feel like they have some opportunity to get to know me in a different way or to get to know me more personally. And so I put up all those menu stuff, because I know a lot of chefs follow us, and I want them to see what we're doing. I want them to be challenged if they work in the same cuisine that I do, what we are doing, that we're really exploring new territory, all of that sort of stuff. I actually don't think that I get a whole lot of response that's directly related to people coming into the restaurant. Of all of the responses that I get from people on Twitter, I would say that way under 10% have to do with people coming into the restaurant. And usually when they do come into the restaurant and they've posted that on Twitter to me, they're saying, I want to meet you. That's what so they're coming for a special birthday or whatever, and so they're kind of alerting me to that.
I think it also has to do with with access. We're talking about local newspapers now. How many people here has a local newspaper today? How many people has a cell phone that they can tweet? Right. So it's become a technology that has give a democratic access to a lot of people having a voice, not only to read about the stuff that we may say, but also to say something about what they read. So is that access with Twitter has 475 million people now with 250 million tweets a day, which is it's making people not only read about stuff, but also say what they think and share that with other people. So it's about making the access democratic.
Yeah, for me, I've found that Twitter it's an extension of the dining room in a certain sense. And we've always felt that hospitality is a dialogue, so that if you're at a table, that's what people want, unless they want to be left alone. But I think what Twitter gives a lot of our guests the opportunity to do, and or people who would like to be a guest someday or just want to be connected, it's to be involved and engaged in a conversation. It gives us a chance to thank people. It gives us a chance to correct mistakes we've made, because Twitter gives people a chance to complain as well as to praise. And it's a wonderful way to really take down the walls of your restaurant and do what you would do if you were tableside, but in a much broader sense.
So then you're saying, and you're nodding your head, you handle your own Twitter account. There's not an assistant doing it for you or someone representing you. You do it yourself.
I mean, you see, when I do it myself, all the issues with my writing,
Right.
here and here, so it's me.
Right.
So, not being very good writing English has a good side. I don't have to sign like President Obama,
I'm very intrigued about, because when we get comments about service in the dining room, it's really super easy for me to send the compliments to all the right people on the staff, just like that. And anytime that there's a complaint, because it comes directly to me and I handle all my own Twitter stuff, I can send that to somebody who can instantly respond to that person. And we can see if there's something that we could do, or maybe it was something that we weren't aware of, but we need to be aware of it, those kinds of things. And I have had so many people thank me because they've just posted something to me on Twitter that they had a bad experience, a good experience, whatever. But I always respond to those people in whatever fashion, and I love that, the immediacy of it.
Yeah, and speaking of immediacy, in the old days, you would get a letter, a complaint letter in the mail a week after the fact, and a week after the person has invariably told all kinds of people about how bad it was. And today, speaking of immediacy, when that little blue light goes on, and somebody is saying something, I had one last week where they said, "What happened to your pancake size at Myelino?" And I hadn't heard that our pancake size had changed. We were able to address it right on the spot, and the person then ended up leaving raving because they got a whole thing of sweet rolls to take, or brioche carmelato to take home with them as a way to thank them for pointing that out to us.
What I believe Twitter is really very important for. Sometimes I get a Twitter like, "Oh, Chef José Andrés just passed by my table, and he didn't say hi." Like, you're expected to say hi to every table. I mean, you know, if they're not looking at you, you let them do their business. And that's amazing. I received the tweet, and then all of a sudden I'm like, "Raise your hand." So you see this woman in the restaurant with a hand up. I believe that the power of Twitter is this moment. Boom. Rick, look at what I'm cooking. And I see that Rick Bayless is cooking this amazing pork in his backyard. That moment, the moment of now, not the moment of an hour later or a day later. The moment of now is where I really see that has a lot of power. I don't know if Twitter is going to be here 5-10 years from now in the way it is today. Probably it's going to end disappearing into or transforming itself into something else. Twitter is not going to be like it is today, but that's what is amazing for the immediacy, like now. It's going to happen now, and you make it happen.
So that's the predominant means of social media that you're using. You're not going on Facebook, you're not doing other things, Foursquare. Twitter is how you're engaging with the diner, with customers.
Well, with Foursquare, I began using it, and I saw myself like I was like nuts. Every time I went somewhere, I had to check in. I'm like, and what I'm checking in? And at the end, I was like 20 checking ins in Los Angeles. I'm like, and why I'm checking in, what I'm gaining, no? So
It's a little big brother, too.
A lot of
It's a
big,
little too
it's
big
a lot of
brother
big
for me.
things. I think to understand the true potential and how we can benefit, because every business is different. What you want to get or what I want to get from it is different. And for us, learning about it is like a life experience. Every day you learn a little bit more of how you can benefit.
I will say that for me, the reason I've chosen to do Twitter, and my Twitter feed goes on to a Facebook fan page, so that's about all I ever do on Facebook. But the reason I've chosen to do it is because it gives me the opportunity to show the complexity and the interesting parts of not only my life, but the restaurant life. So I'm always giving the behind-the-scenes view of what's going on in the restaurant. And I think that right now, the biggest challenge for all of us in this world that are in the restaurant business is to become sort of personal and relevant to people. And one of the ways to become that is to show who you are. And so I'm very careful about what I post on Twitter. I don't carry on conversations with people on Twitter. I will maybe respond to something that somebody has posted to me because I think lots of people want to hear that answer. So I don't just throw a bunch of garbage on there. I'm very careful. I almost always post with a picture because that is worth 1,000 words and we only get 140 characters. And it gives me the opportunity to show a little bit of an insider's view so that people feel like that they know me as a person. And then when they come to the restaurant, as we all know, you want to feel good. It's like going to a restaurant is, especially restaurants like ours, it's like you're going to someone's home in your head, you know? You're going to have this welcoming experience, like going to a friend's home or a family member's home. And by sharing some of who I am on Twitter, I feel like that I create a bit more of that in the restaurants.
Okay. Bernardo, I want to bring you into the conversation here. We were talking before about something called transaction technology, and you're very involved in the technology side of things with Zagat and Google. But you were saying that we're all kind of way behind the curve in terms of how we're getting information and marketing to potential diners out there.
Which I think it happens not only in this industry, but I think across the board. To me, the most important thing, or where I spend most of my time, is trying to close the gap between how fast technology is advancing and how fast consumer adapt that technology and how slow the businesses and the providers of product and services understand all those changes. Something remarkable happened by the end of last year, which is the first time in history that more mobile devices were shipped than PC and laptops. It's actually, right now, more mobile devices connected to the internet are being produced and shipped than desktop PCs and laptops. And here we are, most of us, or the people that I work with, is still worried about how is my website or what do I do in my website, when all of us were already in our cell phones and consumers already think mobile, and businesses, they're normally way behind. And especially in the restaurant industry, I've seen for a long time how all this innovation in the Valley, in Silicon Valley, and in New York, they're focused on the transaction side, like managing your reservations, managing your providers. There's like in Google Ventures, we're like invested in a couple of companies that actually manage the way that you manage your staff to see how productive they are, or how many people come into your store by when, to see the productivity of those things. When actually small businesses care about bringing people through the door. There's actually nothing out there that can say, okay, I'm ready to pay $3.50 per customer, and I want them on Monday night, Tuesday night, and Sundays for brunch, and this is the tables that I have available for that. And I want to do marketing that is highly targeted, that I only pay by results, and I can manage real time to bring those customers in. So, so I see a huge gap between technology and consumer adoption and businesses, but also in the providing of the marketing tools, there's also a gap between doing only transaction technology versus incorporating the marketing into this transaction workflow.
Actually, my partner, Sam Nazarian, who is the guy that took me to LA and who owns SBE, and now he has hotels in Miami, LA, Dallas, many cities around the country. Great guy, very smart, always looking forward. We can be using things like open tables to give access to our guests to make reservation. We can be using Twitter to inform. But what you were saying, SBE created this app where all the hotels, all their nightclubs, all their menus, all their photos, they are used a finger away. You press, and the world of that company opens in front of you. You can make reservations, you can make complaints, you can buy a gift certificate to send somebody, you can download the music that you hear in the restaurant, unbelievable. So now, with all the money he invested, I'm trying to learn exactly how I'm copycatting this for my own company. So it's not using Twitter or using Facebook, these kind of faraway platforms I don't control, but using, as you were saying, the power of the phone that everyone carries in their pocket to create those apps that they are your own apps, and that you give this access to the people that want to be part of your world. I believe this is going to be more the way we're going to be moving forward. Not being here, but being very personalized.
So before someone in the audience thinks, oh my God, I got to create an app now, Bernardo was saying an app is actually one more thing you need to download. That's not necessarily where you're going, but just having the connectivity on the phone.
Yeah, it's fine. You can do an app because it's a closed environment where you can control everything, and it's really, really good because the UI is actually much better. There's a new technology called HTML5 that allows to, if you write your mobile web page in HTML5, it behaves like an app, very similar to an app. So you don't need to download an app. You just go into your browser on the phone, and then you can have a very similar functionality as an app. And if you're big and you want to control your environment and you want to do that, I think it makes sense. But it goes into a lot of development costs and maintenance costs, and then you need to pay, Google, Android, or Apple, where it is for like a share of the price for the download. If you want to make it free, you need to do marketing for people to download it. Versus just your mobile page, your standard, website could be transferred into an optimized mobile website with HTML5 technology to make it usable very easily.
Dan, did you want to add something before? Or no?
Well, I was actually back on the Foursquare comment. When I first learned about Foursquare, I said, there's absolutely no way in the world that I'm going to be a homing pigeon and tell the rest of the world where I am at a given point. And then I realized, which was this, by the way, the same comment I had 12 years ago when I first learned about Open Table, and I said, there's no way I'm going to give up what I think is a great strength of ours, which is how nicely we treat you when you call on the telephone. And then what I started to realize is it's not about me, it's about them. And if people want to make their reservations online, it's bad hospitality not to let them do that. And we've obviously all adapted to that. With respect to Foursquare, I tried for about 6 months, 7 months to do this check-in thing. I had the exact same experience Jose had, where it's just like, it just doesn't matter. I don't need badges, I don't care. But guess what? There is an enormous tribe of people out there that want to do it, and they do it with their friends only. And I think it's a mistake to write off Foursquare as an operator, because what you have, and it truly is tribes, it's really a confluence of Twitter, GPS, and Facebook, meaning that you have an opportunity to pick who your friends are, who you want to know where you are, and you get to move around like a pack. And for us as operators, what's great is that most people who use Foursquare link it to Twitter. And so all we have to do, really, if I don't choose to go into Foursquare directly to find out who's eating in my restaurants at that moment, I can get it directly through Twitter because they're telling me right through that anyway.
I think it's very important to understand. The fundamental thing to understand is that all those are editorial conversations. You know, before they were happening in the local newspaper, and then you need to know the local editor. And now all has that been disintermediated, and now we have all these, you know, parallel, ongoing editorial conversations going on: Twitter, Foursquare, Google Plus, Facebook, and like you just like they're happening. And you know, if you choose to ignore them, like you're choosing not to participate, but there are editorial conversations that you need to have a voice. And if you don't have a voice, you're going to lose business. And even worse, someone may have a voice for you that you don't control, and then it may be having a really bad consequence into your reputation.
It's also generational to some extent, right? The tribe you're talking about, it's not over 45 probably, right? It's a bit younger.
You'd be surprised. To this day, I mean, I'll see I'll be working in one of our restaurants, and I'll notice that someone has just checked in on Foursquare, and I'll go to the table, and it's someone in their 60s. So I think it's dangerous to make a generalization that it's only a certain generation. The other thing I was going to say is whatever technology we're talking about is really only amplifying a human need that has been there since the beginning of time, which is human beings love to spread word of mouth. They love to be voyeuristic, and they like to live vicariously through other people's experiences. That's always been the case. It's just that instead of doing it in the cave or doing it in the piazza or doing it at somebody's Saturday night party, they now get to do it wherever they want to be. And it's a great opportunity that also comes with some peril to those of us who are operators, because we get to hear all the chatter that's going on out there if we choose to. And then, of course, the real art is to figure out what you want to tune out, because a lot of it's just static. It's not going to be constructive, but an enormous amount of it can really help you to double down on the stuff you're doing well and to address the stuff that you may not be doing so well.
So I echo Danny's words. I mean, personally, certain things don't work for me as a business. We cannot put them on the site. But it's one moment that I'm only trying to understand how many platforms are going to be there to be connecting with the people. Because I have a feeling every one of us is going to have a personal assistant, which will be great, because unemployment will go down to zero. To being able to manage that life. Like, I go through when I began Twitter, I said, I'm going to give myself a year. And then I'll decide if I keep going personally or I'll stop. I don't know. We have to be there because you cannot be outside the game. But I'm only wondering, the same way you were visionary with your restaurant so many years ago, and the role you had in making Open Table successful by you doing and many of us following, what is going to be happening 5-10 years from now? Things are happening quick, are moving very quick, and probably this man in his brain, he has many of the answers. But I know that in 5 years from now, it's not going to be the same as it is today. And I'm only trying to understand what's going to be that final platform that really will have more control than the one I feel now. Twitter gives us the option to connect, but obviously we don't control. And I would like to be in a system that I feel I'm slightly more on control. And that's why, for example, this app is something I'm going to be doing, because I believe maybe it's a way to have more direct control and really maximize the people that want to be part of my world, of your world, or of your world. So,
now, before social media, there used to be a way you'd connect with diners. You would actually go out to events, and you still do this, of course, charity events, purely culinary events. You set a table up, meet and greet, people come by, you give them a little taste of from the restaurant. How do you assess those kinds of events? Because you still do them, obviously, but are there ones that are better than others, and do you find an ROI? Because it's expensive to obviously be gone and then take equipment with you, and yeah.
I would just say high tech ain't never going to trump high touch. And it's really only the icing on the cake. And the minute we stop looking people in the eye and shaking their hands and smiling and making them feel happy that they came to our restaurants and really embodying our restaurants by being ourselves, not through a device, but by ourselves, the game's over and it's not worth it.
You don't need to buy his book now, by the way, Setting the Table. Oh, right there, summarized.
a
No,
great
you
book.
do need to buy
Yeah.
his book.
It's an amazing book.
It is a good book. You guys want to chime in?
No, I mean, what
You
he
agree, you
says,
just totally
the
get it.
high touch, I love it. I mean,
Okay.
it's the way it has to be.
Yeah.
Technology is only,
How do you-
it's only a way.
Okay, so that's important, but how do you assess what to choose? Because you get a lot of requests. So how do you
Right.
decide what would be good to do outreach?
I find it the hardest thing in the world. The barrage of all this stuff, the invitations to be a part of all of these different charity events or events, even like coming to Aspen, which is just a phenomenal place to come, but I can't do everything. And so, and neither do I love my restaurant too much to be away from it all the time. And people say that to me all the time. It's like, well, are you ever there? I say, well, if I wasn't, I'd be out of the business, because to me, I got started in the restaurant business because I love being a restaurant chef. I love connecting with the diners. As Danny says, I love seeing people in the flesh be happy with what the experience is that they're having in the restaurant. So if I have to get away from that, then I can't do it. So I don't do everything. I choose to do certain events some years and then lay off of it for a little while. I'll give a whole lot of energy to one charity thing for several years, and then I'll back off of that. So I just find it really hard. And we sit down as a group at our restaurant and we talk about what we're going to focus on and what we're not going to focus on. And sometimes it's just hard to say, oh, we're pulling back from that. Oh, but we love that event. We love that event. But I think it is really hard, and you can spread yourself too thin.
Yeah. Me personally, I don't do too many. I come Aspen and I go to the Cayman Island cookout, but mainly because it's a family vacation. With all I have a lot of fun, but first is family vacation. Will I be more successful, or my restaurants will be emptier if I didn't come? I don't know. Obviously, you can hear you have a connection with food and wine, important to have. So it's very difficult for me just to assess. But me, I decided many years ago that going to events was not a way I was going to be selling myself, because I barely can cook well in my own restaurant. Imagine when I go somewhere, they give me a gas burner that barely works. So this is very difficult, right? So I don't do events. I try to do things more in my home, in my restaurants, where I have more control. But I don't believe that doing more brings you more people. It's other things like the human touch, being in direct connection with people, that really is what makes the one-on-one marketing, as we can call it, the one-on-one PR.
What about engaging with the media? And Bernardo, I'm wondering if there's a way, well, Rick had mentioned he gets probably more response from Eater sometimes than from the newspaper. People are doing Google searches, obviously, but there's traditional media, there's new media, there's sort of fractionalized media. How do you decide to engage with media? Do you have publicists? Do you do freelance? How does it work for each of you? And maybe talk about that too.
I'll just throw a couple of data points that I like, that I think they're gonna tell us how important all this is. In Google, about 20% of all the queries, and we have billions of queries every day, which is unbelievable when I think about it. Like what humanity did like 10 years ago, like all those billions of questions being answered. So about 20% of those billions of queries are local related, like people looking for local answers. And in mobile, it's over 40%. So out of everything that people look on the web, 20% is local related. So you have to be there. That's where people this is where people are. So you need to somehow be there. And then another data point is that here we have celebrities with they need to have a public profile and they need to have a Twitter account and they have to check it into Foursquare. But the beauty about the new technology and the new media is that it creates an amazingly long tail, where even a small little shop can have all these and manage that in the same way they do. So media has been disintermediated to a way where if you want and you understand about this, you can do beautiful stuff. I have a couple of really good friends of mine. They have this amazing ice cream shop in San Francisco. Exactly. Sean is a really good friend of mine. And with an ice cream shop, he's been able to get at the cover magazines, half a million Twitter followers, everything because he knew how to use technology really well. So he got a small ice cream shop and just, with a decent product, I like it a lot, and just put it at the top of new media and traditional media, but just understanding how to manage that really well.
Was he doing outreach to local television, magazines, or were they following the social media wave?
They started first with new technology, with social media, and through social media created enough noise that then it got picked up by traditional media.
Because I'm just curious about the media outreach for the three of you too.
Now the issue is that everyone is media. Everybody. I'm in LA, and this guy, a great person, Perez Hilton, the Hollywood blogger.
Perez Hilton?
Yeah, Perez. He loved the restaurant. He came. He has all these followers. And, one day they had a good experience. And he was very open about it on Twitter. And so I got amigo, how are you? I'm sorry. Can you? So it's funny. Who was going to tell me I had to be dealing with the guy that is following Sofia Vergara?
Right.
What he had to do with our type of business. Right now, anybody it's a person. One blogger today can have 10 followers, but you don't know if he's the next big thing on the web. So everybody's important. That makes our work more difficult, but at the same time easier. Just you try to give proper attention to anyone that comes your way. That's a matter if it has 1 follower on Twitter or 10 million. And with this approach, everybody's media to us right now, because everybody multiply, it's telling a story about who we are. If they love us, everyone is becoming part of your PR team. We have to think it that way now.
But I do think that there's a sort of national scope that you have to think on as well. I agree with Jose that everyone is media and can be media, and I take that very seriously, and I want to make sure that we have as many great experiences as possible in our place, because I know those people are going to not only tell their friends. We used to say, they would tell maybe 10 people or whatever. Now they tell, thousands, because they post it on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever. But there's also an understanding, I think, that there is a national level of media that has editors, and so if you're written up in the New York Times or in the not trade magazines, I meant to say that, like any of the national food magazines, if you're on the national, Today Show, Good Morning America, those kinds of things, where you have to be chosen by the editors to be there, that's another level of exposure that I think is really important. And I think that it is always good to be out there, interacting with people that are going to be putting people on the national.
How would the restaurateur in the room from Delaware or Kansas City get that kind of exposure, you think?
Well, probably through they're probably through a PR person that knows the right people and those that can present for you. In some cases, just by doing something that is really unusual. When we opened Frontera 25 years ago, we were doing something that nobody else was doing, and we had no PR person or anything, and people came to us because they were interested. The editors, they follow that kind of stuff. So if you do something that's really outstanding, really unusual, the media will come to you. So you have to think about it in those terms.
I also think, I agree with everything you guys just said, but at the end of the day, if you're a restaurateur from Delaware or from Manhattan, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're looking to fill our dining rooms. And the media is, it's important because, as I said earlier, it feels good if you get a good write-up, and that can help staff morale. But at the end of the day, if your restaurant's full, who cares?
Right. Is there a way to measure like the ROI or to measure traffic from any of these things we talked about, your website, blogs, follower counts, reservation systems, OpenTable, Google search? Is there any way to tangibly track the response you're getting?
I think it's absolutely necessary. I normally say that marketing is the new finance, because we live in an age where you can actually measure the return on investment of every dollar you spend, either direct advertising or just like through technology, building an app or building a website. Like you can actually, we live on an age where like you can follow every customer since like what is the channel that is coming from, what do they do, how much they eat, and you can track all that. Like you track José Andrés the daily, like how the daily income on all your restaurants, and you measure all that, and then you can cross that with the channel where they're coming from. If someone is looking, if a small kid is looking, what to go to school for, like they should choose being a statistician, because like managing the amount of data that we're going to have in the future, just to understand all this return on investment, is going to be huge. It's not easy, of course. You need to get the skill to do that. You need to have the tools to do that. But if you put the time, you can actually have that, and then it becomes, really efficient to allocate resources. And then this is the channel where I'm getting more people. This is the channel where I'm getting the cheapest leads, and then they're coming on Monday nights, on Tuesdays, and you can actually manage all that in a very rational way.
What's a good starting point for someone here who wants to do some of this, who doesn't want to hire a statistician? How would they begin that process?
Okay, so I will advise a couple of things. First of all, you need to start like transitioning everything you do digitally. So you need to have a reservation platform that is digital, and then once you have that, you can start running all these reports of like how much money you're doing per day and all that, and then you can cross that with your marketing channels. So, for example, in AdWords in Google, you can actually create advertising, and then how much money you pay per every person that click on that ad and goes into your website and actually ends up doing a reservation. So you can actually know how much money it costs you a reservation by day, by hour. And then you can have an average number or by day. So like anyone here, if they would want to, they could implement that and see how much money they pay per reservation, and then decide, okay, up to $5, $10, $7. And then once you know that, you can say, I have $3,000 this month. Add up $3 a piece, bring me all these reservations on the days that I need to. Because the beauty about this too is that you can turn it on and off real time, only for the times that you need it.
Right. OpenTable has been doing that for years with a program called POP, which I think a lot of you probably have utilized at a certain point, where you have the opportunity to turn on a switch to give 1,000 frequent diner points, which people can then turn in for $10 worth of value at any OpenTable restaurant. And what that means is that our operators, our managers, can look at the reservation book for tonight, for the rest of the week, and can say, we need more diners at 5:30 tonight, or it could be a Sunday night, you actually need them at 8 o'clock at night. And you turn on the switch, and all of a sudden it becomes a 1,000 point opportunity. It's not a discount. It doesn't come across as a coupon, which is great because restaurateurs don't like that whatsoever. But the people make the reservation, they acquire the points, and then by virtue of having those points, the consumer can use that value at any OpenTable restaurant whatsoever. So I think that's great, because in the old days, I remember my wife, Audrey, worked for 7 years at another food magazine, and they used to try to get us to advertise. I'll say it was Gourmet Magazine, and they used to have restaurants in the back advertising all the time. And one of the things that almost broke up my marriage at an early stage was I would refuse to advertise. And she said, but you have to. And I said, no, because just think about it. I'm going to spend $5,000 for a little baby ad in the back of the magazine. And what I have to hope is that someone actually sees it. Number two, I have to hope that when they see it, they are actually moved to want to eat at our restaurant. Third, I have to hope that having seen it and wanting to eat there, when they call, we actually have a reservation open. And if any of those three things failed, I've flushed my $5,000 down the toilet. Yeah. Whereas what I was just describing is that if you're willing to pay, and I think it's exactly what you're saying, Bernardo, if you're willing to pay money only if someone actually takes you up on it, then you have nothing to lose.
Are you all spending money on marketing or advertising at all? Or is it all just word of mouth, social media, things we're talking about?
We don't.
You don't spend any money?
We never did. I mean,
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm sorry for the newspaper industry. I know they're having a hard time.
Yeah.
And I feel responsible, but we never did, precisely because what he said.
Okay. So you've all agreed that high touch is probably more important than high tech. And I want to ask you about pop-ups. Pop-ups are kind of a brief, intermittent way to promote yourself on a temporary window. The biggest example is probably José, who's got one in Washington, D.C. right now. The National Archives had an exhibition there about American food, and yours was called, I think, America Eats? No, America
Yep.
Eats Tavern. And you were quoted as saying, you do have to be a little bit crazy to want to do a pop-up, but it's like being young again. It's exciting. Our staff stays up late reading old American cookbooks. They want to invest the time and energy into a project like this. So are pop-ups worth it to get the word out there?
Okay, did I create America Eats only to say now I'm an American with an accent and I belong? Did I do it to get media attention? No. And this is one of the things everyone needs to learn. You don't do things because you're going to create media. You do things because you believe in them genuinely. It's like the typical, it's what I call the hallmark, the cards, the hallmark dilemma, no? It's like, sometimes you get the phone call from a company saying, do you have on St. Valentine's Day anything that is red? Like, I don't operate that way, no? So you operate in things you believe in. So America Eats, I had this amazing need of telling my story of how I see America cooking from a historical perspective. The National Archives had this amazing exhibition that was in relationship of the influence of the government in the way America eats today. And so we kind of partnered with the National Archives and we did this pop-up. Did we got a lot of media attention? Yes. Was good for me and my restaurant group? Yes. Will I do it again? No.
Okay.
Why? Because the amount of time, energy, effort, whatever, the earnings, we donated 100% to the National Archives. We got American Express as a sponsor. Thank you very much, American Express. But I had my restaurant group. I had Dole also was a sponsor. I had many of my chefs that wanted to do it. We had cash that we could spend to do it. But it's something that you have to think it twice.
Right.
And the way I did it was amazing. I had one of the best experiences in my life. But my God, like, oof.
I mean, I've seen restaurants in Chicago, they're not open yet, but they'll do a pop-up one night or they'll do a pop-up somewhere else in somebody's kitchen to kind of build buzz and say, we're about to open. What do you think about that strategy?
I think it's a great one.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to get the buzz going about your restaurant before it opens, because right now, the blogosphere that we all live in, and the bloggers, especially the restaurant bloggers, are so voracious for something to talk about, and they'll be peering in the windows to see what's coming along, and they'll be talking to the workmen. Is there any like crazy thing going on in there that we should know about, and all that sort of stuff? Because they're all trying to grab the headlines basically and get picked up. And I think if you just play along with it, knowing that that's what they want, and give them a taste of things, then you are more in control than them trying to create their own headlines. But you really give them a chance to come and enter into what's going on. And I know when we opened 3 years ago, when we opened Shoko, our quick service place, that it was just when sort of the bloggers were really gaining all this power, and I didn't know how to work with them because it just was too new in that whole world. And I would have done everything completely different. I didn't realize how invasive they could be, and I should have been just more welcoming to them instead of trying to say, well, of course not. Wait till we open the doors and stuff like that.
Do you want to add anything to that? No.
It's slightly tangential, is that okay?
Yeah.
But I was just thinking when you were talking about tech and high touch, I had an experience yesterday at the hotel I'm staying at that absolutely blew my mind. And I don't know that I've seen a confluence of tech and touch like this in my life. Many years ago when we opened Shake Shack, people would say I would go there a lot more often if I only knew whether the line was short or long or medium. And so we installed something called the Shack Cam. And the Shack Cam, it broadcasts in real time on our website, on the Shake Shack website. And so at any time of day from anywhere in the world, you can, but presumably if you're in the neighborhood, it's the most useful, you can decide whether or not it's a good use of your time to walk over there at that point. And I checked into my room yesterday at the Little Nell and put down my luggage and kind of, this is where this is, that's where that is. And all of a sudden, I put a bunch of stuff on the desk, the business desk. And just by putting the stuff on the desk vibrates, which then turns on a computer that is broadcasting live the line at Shake Shack in New York. Oh. And if you want to talk about the thoughtfulness of a hotel that went to the trouble of saying, who's going to be staying in this room? What is a good way to make that person feel welcome and good? Now, what they don't realize is I spent the next hour.
Or if the line is really short, you would freak out.
It was busy till 11 o'clock last night, I can tell you that.
Wow. That
That's great.
makes the Four Seasons look like a Motel 6. I mean, that's really intense. Wow. Okay, I want to ask you about databases. This is probably right up Bernardo's alley, but how do you build a good database of good customers, or just of customers, I should say? And then how do you curate that list? Danny, got a list of back 30 years, I bet, right? Now, how do you create a good list, and how do you curate it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and that's probably why companies like Groupon and those discounts, they've been successful, because they found a way of making money successfully with email lists. But that's what it is. They acquire an email list. It's like, so why do you have to do that? I can do that myself. I can acquire those customers if I were to know them. So I think that was probably true 10 years ago. It was about like, give me your email and then I'll send you my newsletter. Now we have all these social media profiles, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, and all that. So you can actually get to know the user much better. So it's beyond a database. I wouldn't call it a database. I would call it like a community of people that could have like a real conversation with you. And if you put the time and the resources into curating that, it could be very powerful. How do you curate that? It has to do with something new in technology that is called recommendation engines. We have more and more information about all of our results on the web, like not only my name, my email address, but where do I go through the check-ins, the music that I listen, the food that I eat, the pictures that I take. All that information is structured in what we call objects. So it can be, reduce that information into objects that could be like analyzed. This guy, is married, have kids, go out and eat like, twice a week. You can curate all that to actually target on offers or recommendations or programs to your community. So I would say, one, it's not about databases anymore, it's about communities, and you have the data to create those communities and the tools to do that. Two, the information is deep and structured. So you can go beyond an email and actually get to know your community to create product, offers, services, events, exclusivity. We live in a world of massive supply. Like, people die for exclusivity. Like, if you can actually know your client base and clear something exclusive for each of those, they're going to feel much closer to you.
Anybody else? No?
I
Okay.
find it hard to do.
Find it hard to do.
As an independent operator, I find it hard to know if my list is good and how to curate it. I'm just not that tech savvy, I think, as part of it, and so it's not something that's come really easily to me. But, you know, we collect email addresses at different times, people respond to us, and so we have their email addresses, whatever it might be, but I feel like that we have several lists, but I feel like that those lists, I always wonder when we send something out, is it the right list?
We began many years ago with a company called Fishbowl that helped us precisely manage that database. And we began gathering cards in the restaurants, and over the years we developed hundreds of thousands, and they manage it for us. But you have to be unbelievably careful. Every time I get an email, I get annoyed.
Right.
Imagine 10, imagine 100. So now here is important moment. I believe more important than keep annoying people sending them things, I think is how we're going to be using these platforms, these digital platforms, to make sure that we are there for them when they want to be part of us.
Right.
And to kind of finding that balance, I think, is the perfect moment.
And of course, people are concerned about their data too. They don't want to just give out emails and then their accounts are the person's account is hacked and then their email is used for something else. So you have to be careful about taking that information and sort of preserving it, right, and keeping it secure.
Yeah, privacy is a huge issue, but I don't think we should stop innovating because our privacy concerns. I think we just need to be very strict into how we manage privacy. I mean, I work at Google, and we invest a lot of money and resources into making sure that privacy is private. So everything we know about you it's under your control. You know what we do with that, and then you can delete it or take it away whenever you want to. And everyone that gets data from third parties who have these really high standards in managing privacy. It's critical because it takes a long time to build trust, and then it just in a minute, someone steals your database and start doing spamming with that, and then they lose the entire trust with you. So.
Last,
I think
Oh,
he's
sorry.
breaking a rule right there.
tweeting.
Look at that.
Well,
I didn't sign anything.
that's right. We'll let you slide. One more question before we open it up for questions. I want to ask you about, we kind of touched on this a little bit, about reaching out to customers, potential customers and diners with maybe like an email or constant contact. People a lot of times will opt in. They will give you their email because they want to be contacted. They want to be on this exclusive list. They want to know about specials and deals. Do any of you deal with that sort of thing, constant contact or email newsletter?
Yeah.
Yeah?
We send out newsletters periodically from all of our restaurants, but we're big subscribers, no pun intended, to the notion of permission marketing, which is that if you have not asked to be put on our list, you're not there. I'm absolutely overwhelmed and amazed every day and I'm sure everyone in this audience has the same thing. You get what are obviously very, very commercial emails from people, and at the bottom, most of them say, would you like to unsubscribe or opt out? But why did you put me there in the first place? And it starts our relationship off with a negative. And so we're really, really firm about making sure that anything we send you, if you ever were to get something from us and wonder how the heck you got on our list, that means we would have failed because that's so counter to what our intention would be.
We're the same way. You have to subscribe to our newsletter, and I built my newsletter around my most popular cookbook, which is Mexican Every Day. And so I built a newsletter around that. So not only do we give you information about the restaurants and things that are going on behind the scenes things, but we also give you recipes that follow that tack of what we did in Mexican Every Day, which is, a short list of ingredients and 30-minute kind of recipes so that you can make our food at your own home. And hopefully once you make that and then you think, oh, when we go out, let's go have some of those same kind of flavors. So I decided to try to do something that wasn't just about us, but was about the people receiving the newsletter that would really enrich their lives. So I try to give them something. So if if they open it, and I agree with Danny, I get so many of these emails every day that I did not ask to get. And I just hit, delete, 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 delete all day long. That's what I'm doing. But if people are nice enough to open my email, I want to make sure that they get something in return. And just news of the restaurant's not enough for me. I want to give them something tangible.
Okay. All right, time for questions. We've got a microphone. Sarah over here on the side of the room has a
Drew
microphone.
Niporan is over there.
And
He's always
Drew,
the
of
first
course.
one. Where are you,
Drew
Drew?
left. Is Drew here?
You left?
He's coming back. Okay, he better. So, any questions? Just go ahead and raise your hand. If you could just identify yourself, where you're from, that would be great. And no questions.
While we
Seriously?
get-
Not even from Delaware?
There is one there. While we get the first one, like all those emails, like by law, you're like they should have a link to say unsubscribe. So just like instead of the link, just go there, say unsubscribe, and then that's a really.
And
healthy
some
way
of them
to
come
plan it.
every day,
Every-
and I
just-
don't
hate that,
unsubscribe. Like,
just
how
go
dumb am I?
unsubscribe, and then
Right.
you don't get that.
You got to unsubscribe them.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Lisa. I'm from San Francisco. I actually work for Open Table. Thanks for all the kind words. My question is, a trend I see happening in San Francisco is this whole food truck phenomenon, and they have really made great use of social media, Twitter, and all these things to garner all this following, and they get written up all the time in the Eater. And I was just wondering if that's in your cities, if you're seeing that, and how does that mesh with like what restaurants are doing that aren't a food truck? And is that a good question?
I love food trucks.
You love food trucks. I mean, they're big in Portland. They're big in L.A.
They're
They're big in New York.
They're big everywhere.
Chicago, now, by the way, has a law,
Portland.
you can't cook on the trucks in Chicago yet. So people have to prepare them in a licensed facility and then keep them on the truck warm somehow.
Right.
The city council hasn't passed it yet, but they do get a lot of
They're
press.
steam table trucks.
They are.
In Chicago
Yeah.
is really
So,
what they are.
I have one.
You have one?
We call it pepper truck, and we do Spanish sandwiches, Iberico ham. And we began 3 months ago. We only do it for lunch. We're having lines. We use social media to keep informing where the truck is going to be. I'm never able to find my own truck. I mean,
Do people expect to
no,
see you
be-
there? Do people expect to see you behind the-
No. So it's been a great experience. I wanted to do it for many reasons. I love to watch soccer games, and when it's a soccer game, it's what do I eat now? It's like, now I have a truck. So that's the reason we did it. And I did it because I wanted to learn what's that phenomenon. So now I have one to be testing and to be working and employing people. And also I wanted to do it as a support kind of thing. I know it's a lot of people that have different views, but if we allow the hot dog carts in the streets of America, and no one has ever complained, those food trucks, many of them are unbelievably clean. Sometimes it's great young cooks, professionals. It's a great way to give opportunity to someone to be the owner of a small business. And like always, the rules of how those trucks were operating in the different cities, like in LA, police was harassing food trucks because no one had legislation. It was something weird. It's like, hold on, what is this phenomenon? So everyone was very, very slow. So I kind of wanted to join to help Washington, the seafood truck community, to really get the right legislation in Washington so they can operate freely. So me as a restaurant owner, I think food trucks are great. They add flair to the city, but like everything else, everyone should be paying taxes, should be regulated, blah, blah,
What's
blah.
a ballpark investment to get into a food truck? 100,000?
A good
do
truck,
less than that.
80, 90,000, a good truck. Like a good truck, 80, 90,000. With 110, 120, you get an amazing thing. And the other reason I did it is I have to have a kitchen in Miami, and we're going to put the kitchen in a food truck. So for me, it was a way to begin doing research and development on how this kitchen in Miami in a food truck is going to be operating. So
They're definitely having their moment. John T. Edge has a cookbook out now about food truck food, so they're definitely cresting, I think, in terms of popularity.
And there's a direct correlation between the growth of food trucks and the hunger of landlords across the country.
it is, wow.
Over here? Over here? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jeff Allen. I'm from New York City. And my question is, how do you, especially those of you with multiple restaurants in multiple cities, handle consumer feedback and commentary on sites like Yelp, TripAdvisor, or within Google Places? Do you have a team in place? Do you have certain technology you use? Are there certain processes that you follow? Can you speak to that?
Well, you both have multiple. You've got a couple multiples, mostly in Chicago, though. One in LA.
We have divide things up amongst our staff, and different people look at different things. And we don't consider all of those sites that you mentioned to be of equal value or equal weight. And so some of them are known for attracting a certain kind of commentator. And
Being very political, I can tell.
Yes, I was just trying to think. I was editing myself as I was doing that. But we do look at all that stuff, and we just divide it up amongst our team. That we're all looking to see what people are saying. What the most important thing for us is just, the same kind of comment over and over again, and we'll certainly really address that. We pay attention to all of those kinds of things. But usually we know all that. If we don't know some of that stuff ourselves and just use the Yelp comments as sort of a confirmation of it, then we're not doing our business. Because usually if we got a problem, we know it anyway, and we're already working on it.
What about USHG?
I was going to say, each of our general managers and chefs pays attention to their own restaurant. But we've also begun to work with a company, and so far just with Shake Shack, called New Brand Analytics. I don't know if people have heard about it. But what they do, and I don't think they're probably the only company that does this, is that they sweep through a wide variety of social media, Twitter, Facebook, Yelp, OpenTable, whatever is out there, they're sweeping through it. And they will give you a report for your restaurant that allows you to name let's say, whatever the 10 things you care about most. It could be your decor, it could be your food, it could be your staff, it could be the cleanliness of your restaurant. And they'll give you a report by aggregating all of the noise out there. So you get one report at the end of the month. And they'll also allow you to compare yourself to a set of competitors. And so, for example, if you want to see how are your desserts adding up compared to all your competitors, they're sweeping through every comment. So if someone on Foursquare says, I checked into your restaurant and the desserts were amazing, and all of a sudden you're getting these patterns that Rick was just talking about, it all pops up to the surface. And that's a really efficient way to learn.
Then you find things like this person saying that, crocoche was in their table in my Mexican restaurant, and she was talking openly about it, and then realized that her companion ordered chapulines, the grasshoppers. And you are like, give me a break. So how something like you are not even aware can be negative to you, and something like this, you're finding out through other ways, and you can react quick and say, ladies, first, next time, chapulines is exactly looks like something weird,
Right.
but we put it there on purpose. So anyway, so these things help to
That
answer
sounds
to
great,
issues.
yeah.
But what I was going to say, it's also, it's the next generation of, when we first got into business, we never did this ourselves. We always had people pitching us to send in mystery shoppers into the restaurant. And the reason we never did it is that we much preferred to have our own staff members for that amount of money eating in our restaurants and telling us what they thought, because it felt like a game of gotcha from the outside. But the fact is that all these people are giving feedback anonymously from the outside, and if you can find one way to aggregate that information and not pull your hair out trying to look at every single website every single day, it really helps.
Yeah. Right over here.
Hi, my name's Susan. I'm from Fort Smith, Arkansas. Just building on the same question, two questions. One is, do you respond to the people who write to you on, or who put those comments out on Urban Spoon and Yelp? And the other thing is, I've noticed with Yelp, and so I apologize if anybody's here from Yelp, they filter reviews, and I don't know why they do it, but it can end up where many of your positive reviews get filtered out and they only leave select reviews on, and how do you manage that?
Let me just throw a little light on that, because I think reviews, it's a very, very complicated animal. I think that till very recently you were not even able to reply to a bad review or even a good review as a restaurant owner, or in some of those websites you had to pay. In most of them it's like, oh, you want to reply to this, like you have to pay to us. It's like, oh, really? So you're forcing me, to pay you because of something that you did for free to other people.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's like you have to be very careful what is the environment, and it's our responsibility, the ones that we build those products, that we do it in the more like open play field and equal, giving consumers but also business owners equal opportunity to have a voice. I have that I'll be more than happy to send to you to put in your website. It is very scientific research done that when you combine offers and deals with reviews in the same one, your review average goes down, because there's a whole specialized army of people there. They just go to these places, they put a bad review, and they use that review to do blackmail to get deeper discounts into your deal offers. So there is a correlation between you doing deals with someone and then your review going down in that website. So I think it's very important that when we build these products, we actually, we keep in mind both consumer and businesses at the same time, and not only consumers, which I think has been the norm in the past. And then second, that you have a voice. So the minute that you see something, but you just go there and respond very fast, so you don't allow people to take advantage of those bad reviews.
Okay. One more question. Over here, yes. The gentleman over there in the yellow.
Hi. Question is, can you recommend where to go? You mentioned new brand analytics. We don't know, Ben and Betsy from Delaware, thank you for the hit on Delaware. Where can we go as restaurateurs to find out what's available to us for technology? We don't know what we don't know, and Open Table Pop didn't know about it. That's great. Can you recommend, or is there someone, does anybody know anywhere that we can go to find out what's available to us in terms of technology?
Anywhere? Really good question.
You go to Google and do a Google search about this. You're going to find a lot of it. There's another company called Review Pro. They're from Barcelona. They're becoming big worldwide. There's a lot of startups that actually they're helping you to do this. But if you do a quick search, Google or any other, but you're going to find providers that they allow you. Most of them, they allow you to download the software for free and try that for 30, 60 days, so you can use that.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Fantastic panel as always. If you could stick around for a couple minutes, I know there might be some interviews that they want to do with Amex, if it's possible. If not, we understand. But if you could stick around for a few minutes for questions, that'd be great. Please turn your cards in. $50 Amex gift card on the line. The next panel is at 1:30 back here, the Fame game, all about television, how to get on television, how to maximize that exposure, and hopefully see you later this afternoon at the 2:30 cocktails outside. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Great panel.